to debates.
No, we're not having debates tonight. We have a monologue. No, we have lots of fun tonight. Good evening. Jamie Gates. I teach in the Department of Sociology and Social Work, and I'm the director of the Center for Justice and Reconciliation on campus, which sponsors this Brewed Awakening series. Of course, the name, Brewed Awakening, serving fair trade coffee, tea, and speakers to stir the social conscience, right? We expect most of our speakers to come tonight and talk about really cutting-edge social change, really. And so, for those of you that don't know about the Center for Justice and Reconciliation on campus, there's some brochures out back. By all means, feel free to take this. There's also a sign-up sheet out back if you want to know more about the different programs coming up. There's some border tours coming up. The rest of the Brewed Awakening series, there'll be a Brewed Awakening at least once every month. There's all kinds of fun things happening. There's a sign-up sheet out back. Another big thing we have coming up for next semester and next summer is a South Africa Study Abroad program. So I'm taking students to South Africa after a semester of studying to South Africa together. It's a unique kind of program that we offer, so you can be prepared a semester ahead of time, and then we go spend a month in South Africa together, tooling around, going to all kinds of fun places. If you're interested, I'm going to send this around. If you're interested in more information about the South Africa Study Abroad program, just go ahead and sign your name and email on here. So I'll just send that around. And then, knows what fair trade coffee is? What's fair trade coffee? Why fair trade? As opposed to?
Exploitative.
As opposed to what? Free trade, right? As opposed to free trade. What's free trade? Come on, don't make me our campus look stupid in front of me. Yes. What's free trade as compared to fair trade?
We aren't charged any taxes on if we import from another country, and it's almost kind of like exploiting another country because they can't really make any money on it.
Okay, so free trade, like the free flow of goods over borders without taxes or tariffs either direction is sort of the generic understanding of free trade, right? Why fair trade as opposed to free trade? Come on now.
Gives farmers like a sustainable wage, the wage that they can afford to live on.
It's a fair trade. If you've never heard of this before, fair trade is this attempt to create an infrastructure of higher prices and more direct relationships with the people that grow food around the world. And because the free trade system has inherently created systems of exploitation, has inherently created sort of the lowest possible price for growers and pickers, people that work in the grocery fields in this global food system, right? So it's a particularly interesting topic we have tonight with Ellee Igoe from the International Rescue Committee. Ellee is one of the leading food justice persons in San Diego, and I don't say that lightly. There are a lot of people working on this, but Ellee has, in working with the IRC, has pulled together a lot of the local energy, and together with a couple dozen people, have begun to look at local food security, food sustainability, urban agriculture, growing gardens, not just in people's homes, but also in schoolyards and in public places where people can have access to growing their own food, knowing more about where food comes from, the costs of food. And so you're going to learn a lot tonight about food systems, but also about what happens here, and about perhaps some more just ways of being involved as a consumer and as a producer of food. So I'm excited about tonight, and I'm excited, Ellee, that you joined us. I'm going to turn the rest of the evening over to you, and there will be time for question and answer, so don't head out early. It's going to be a really good time for dialogue, okay? Thank you, Ellee.
So much. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. My newborn son is here, and he's been sleeping, and it sounds like he just woke up. Hopefully he won't be too much trouble. Amanda, right? Yeah, take care of him. So, yep, perfect timing for him to wake up. So, my name's Ellee. I work at the International Rescue Committee. It's fine if you haven't, but raise your hand if you've heard of the International Rescue Committee. A few people. The IRC operates in 25 countries and 25 U.S. cities, and we operate refugee camps and services overseas for folks that are living in places like Darfur or outside of Iraq. And then when people are cleared for resettlement into the United States, we help them start their new lives here. So you can imagine how it might feel to be a refugee from Burma. That's one of the populations that are coming in right now, the Karen refugees. They've lived in a refugee camp in Thailand for the last 15 years of their life. They've never seen a modern appliance, they've never been up an escalator, and they show up in San Diego. And so we help them restart their lives here. And so the Food Security and Community Health Program got started because you can only, I mean, there's all these things happening around you, but the fundamental way that you take care of yourself, feeding yourself, is now completely different, right? So, and many folks come from agrarian backgrounds. So they were farmers in their home country. And so there's some real linkages back to the knowledge that they bring from their country of origin that they have to offer to us here in San Diego. So it's kind of a brief overview of who I am and what I do at the IRC, and I'll talk a little bit more about that down the road. But tonight I am here to talk to you. This thing is kind of a fancy new program. Not it. So, but tonight I'm going to talk to you in general about what the food system is and how it affects all of us every day here in San Diego and across the globe. And then we'll link it back into why the heck a refugee organization is working on these projects. So what is the food system? The food system is the production, harvest, processing, distribution, marketing, sale, consumption, and waste management of food. It's a long chain from where that mango first came out of a tree until it ends up on your dinner plate, right? We call that from farm to fork. It's another way of thinking about it. So I'm going to use a lot of graphs today, and I'm sorry it probably feels a little like you're in class, but sometimes I feel like pictures are better than words. So this is kind of a pictorial representation of the food system, right? The pyramid. At the bottom we have our natural resources, right? Our soil, our seeds, our water, and our energy. That's what the food system is built on, right? The second step is our human resources, the laborers, the managers, the professionals of the food system. These people being the ones that as Jamie pointed out, tend to be the most exploited, the professionals being the ones that win in this system. And between the next step is the most important one, the one that I'm going to spend a lot of time focusing on today. Because all of these things, the social values, the economics, our policies, education, and our research and technology really impact what's going on where our food is produced. So right now we have one set of policies, one belief system around economics, and that's really driving the production and consumption of our food. And if we were to shift those things, if we were to change our fundamental values, then we would see a different kind of cycle up above, which is production, right? The farming, the gardening, the fisheries, the wild foods that we gather and sell, the transformation, so the packaging and the labeling of our food, taking the tomatoes and turning it into salsa, the distribution, the access, so the retailing, and then the consumption of food, right? And all of that leads into our outcomes of the food system. And those impacts fold back down onto the cycle. So for example, if you're talking about using lots of petrochemical fertilizers, right, that process comes back into the system, and our soil isn't as healthy as it was before, right? So we have these negative outcomes and positive outcomes of the food impacts of the food system, right? And so really what we're going to talk a lot about today is how we influence that upper step there. Does that make sense? Was the graph worthwhile? Okay, good. So this is our current food supply chain. All right, don't take any time thinking about it because it's obviously incredibly complicated, right? There's all kinds of arrows and stuff going on, and oh my gosh, right? And this is the other side, a farmer's market, where someone either grew this food in their backyard or 25 miles away, and they bring it and they put it out, and you buy it, right? So it's my opinion, and I think even further than that, we're seeing that the environmental impacts of this system are far different than that previous one. Now in this system, you'll notice that there's root vegetables and greens, right? There's not bananas on that table because this, I grabbed this off the internet, it's not from our farmer's market, but you know, bananas don't grow in most places, during most times of the year. And San Diego, we're lucky we can grow bananas. But it's a whole different way of thinking and eating that we're talking about here, right? Where it's not just simple. It's not, I want a banana today to go on my cereal. It's like, wait, bananas aren't in season, but maybe raspberries are, right? So it's a different food system. So I'm going to spend a little time talking about the global versus local food system, all right? And these are really simple kind of like putting, there's lots of gray area between these things, but I'm just going to talk about the extremes because that we don't have time to go into the little nitty gritty. So the global food system tends to be monocropped, meaning that we have vast swaths of land that either grows corn or rice. We use chemical pesticides and fertilizers. A local system would focus on biodiversity, it would be invested in sustainability, and it would be accountable to the community in which it lives, right, or operates. The second is farmer income. In a global system, as Jamie was pointing out, competition, here, you want to pass her the pacifier? That might help. It's probably not great. So in the global system, competition drives price down. Subsidies, like in the US, right, we pay farmers not to farm sometimes because we have too much corn, so we give farmer X, a bunch of money not to grow corn. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So we're subsidizing people to grow crops that we don't even necessarily need. And if you want to learn more about corn, there's a great new movie out called King Corn. Has anyone seen it? Yeah? Okay. And it goes into all the details about what's happening with subsidies. So if you're curious, you can check that out. And most interestingly, price doesn't cover production costs. Right? That seems like a broken system, but yet we're stuck in it. In a local system, we have a fair price for our products, fewer middlemen, and it gives more of the food dollar to the farmer. Right? So what does that food dollar look like? Right now, this red line is every food dollar that you spend, that's going into marketing, packaging, and distribution, right? And 19 cents is going to the farmer, right? So how is a farmer supposed to survive, especially in a place like San Diego County, when that much of your dollar is not going to them? So in the system that we're talking about here tonight, can we shift some of this marketing side into the farmer's pocket and create a more sustainable system? All right, so they say that local is the new organic, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Have you guys heard that? Yeah? So there's a bunch of reasons for that. But one of the primary ones is your health. Food that's grown closer to home has more nutrients. It tastes better because they don't, in the global system, they pick it before it's even ripe, right? If it's local, they're picking it when it's ripe and you're getting more bang for your nutrition buck. The global system, because of that, is very pesticide focused. There's not a lot of regulations around what pesticides can go in your food when you're getting it from, a lot of the food from San Diego comes from Sinaloa, the state in Mexico. There's no regulations in Sinaloa on what kind of pesticides they can put on your food. And high fossil fuel dependency. The average food item travels 1,500 miles from farm to fork. 1,500 miles. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Locally, food is ripe, it's nutritious, there's reduced dependency on fossil fuels, and it just tastes better. Oh, I'm not so sure I like this program. Okay. So when it comes to economy, the global system has a lot of consolidated operations, there's fewer owners, it's driving down wages, it's consolidated wealth that leaves our communities. Right? We're not keeping our food dollars in our own local economies. And conversely, our local economies, there's more individuals and businesses involved, there's more jobs, and it promotes fair living wages, and it keeps money in our neighborhoods. So this crazy graph is our current organic industry structure. So these yellow, just pay attention to the colors, these yellow bubbles are the corporations, right? The red labels are the organic brands that these large corporations have bought. okay? And then the blue, so you recognize like Horizon Organics, they do milk. They're owned by, that's not the best example, Adwala, owned by Coca-Cola, right? So we're seeing, even in our organics industry, because the more demand there's been for organics, these big corporations, they're gonna make money off of it. See, Philip Morris now owns Boca Burgers, so you're supporting cigarette company when you buy your Boca, your vegan Boca Burgers. This you can find online just by Googling corporate ownership organics if you want to check it out a little bit more. But point is even our organic system is getting consolidated. Thus, the kind of return to the local is the new organic. So let's talk about community. The impacts on the food system in a global system, we have failing rural towns, right? The average age of farmers in the United States is 62, and their kids are not staying on the farm, right? So we have these vacuums in our rural communities. We have a system where people don't know where their food comes from, right? I had a kid once, we were out picking blackberries in the forest, and he said, "I ain't eating no berry off no bush." Really? I mean, that's where we've come to, because our food system, things come from the grocery store, right? They don't come from a farm. And farmers are disconnected from our eaters. In a local system, there's lively commerce and community interaction. There is a connection between rural and urban, and people know where their food comes from. Eating and buying food becomes a part of community, right? So I put some pictures of, this is the Walmart organics, right? You can buy organic at Walmart now. And then I hear you guys have a Fresh and Easy now right around the corner, right? And we were talking about this, Jessica, right? No? What's your name? Cheryl. I'm sorry, I don't know where I got Jessica from. We were talking about this because, hey, we can get a fruit bowl instead of a hot dog. What's wrong with that, right? Well, nothing for our health. But unfortunately, when we go back, we roll it back into this conglomeration of corporations. You know, are we really solving the fundamental problem when we have Fresh and Easy? When we have 60 new Fresh and Easies in San Diego, right? And where are all those dollars going when we spend them at Fresh and Easy? They're not even staying in the country, they're going back to Great Britain, right? And it's really difficult for people to compete with Fresh and Easy, right? Because that whole global model that drives down costs, and the more you're selling, the cheaper you can make it, right? So by having more Fresh and Easies in our communities, we're solving one problem, but maybe we're not setting ourselves up for the best long-term outcomes. I didn't rip Fresh and Easy too much. Maybe we will later. They've also said that they're going to go into low-income neighborhoods because there's this phenomenon. See, here I go further into Fresh and Easy. There's this phenomenon in most low-income communities where they call them food deserts, right? Where there's more fast food and there's usually not any grocery stores in low-income communities. And so Fresh and Easy has promised that they will go into low-income communities, and it hasn't happened yet. All of them are in upper class neighborhoods. So we're still waiting to see what they'll ever do that. Okay, so here's the slide with a lot of words on it. And I don't really need to go into all of them, but there's so many reasons why our food system is broken, right? We have 1 in 3 Caucasian children and half the children of color born in 2000 will develop diabetes in their lifetime. And for the first time in the last 250 years, my son has a shorter life expectancy than I do. And it's all because of what we eat, what we put in our bodies, right? That is a broken food system. We spend more than $100 billion annually on obesity-related healthcare costs. That's a broken food system. In fact, it's one of the first times that our population is simultaneously malnourished and obese. Right? How did that happen? How did we get there? And there's some really good reasons we can talk about. So the price of fruits and vegetables is up 40% between 85 and 2000. And yet the price of soft drinks and other sugary high-fat foods has gone down 20%, right? Back to king corn and subsidizing corn syrup, right? How is it that a Twinkie that has 100 different ingredients and is highly processed costs less than a carrot? How did we get there? It's a broken food system, right? I've already gone over some of this, but I think the one I also want to point out is that 17% of fossil fuels in this country are used on the farm, right? And it's estimated that food production, processing, transporting, all of that account for 30% of our emissions, right? In fact, this is the one that really, really gets me. 66% of methane in the atmosphere comes from our food system. It comes from cows. It comes from methane. It comes from animal production. And the way that we put all of our, we've factoryized our farming. And I'll say that for another day. But we have a broken food system. My cursor is missing.
Back into the left.
Back into the left.
Yeah, to the left.
Ah. So let's talk local a little bit. Okay, what's going on right here in San Diego County? Well, we have over 5,000 farms in San Diego County, which is the second highest of all counties in the entire U.S. Would you believe that? Kind of crazy. We have more small farms than any other county. 63% of them are under 10 acres. So we have lots of tiny little farms, right? We have the 12th largest farm economy in the entire United States. Right? This stuff blew my mind about San Diego because we just don't think of it as a rural place, right? 92% of our farms are family owned, and 77% live on the farm, which is really backwards for most of the country, right? Factory farms have really dominated most of the U.S. But each acre of land costs over $5,000. Wait, no. What is that? Oh shoot, I don't remember that statistic. Is it 500,000? No, that doesn't make sense. Shoot, I'm sorry, I'll have to look that up. But our water costs, for a farmer, it costs a farmer about $600 to water an acre a year. That's a really high cost of water. So that equals expensive farming. You know, land is expensive, water is expensive. That's the take-home message. Sorry, I don't remember the exact statistic. So you would think, great, we've got a lot of local food in San Diego. That's awesome. We can build on that. Well, unfortunately, because we have to produce so much per acre because it costs so much, most of our farming is in nursery and flower crops, right? So this really pisses me off. We grow palm trees for Nevada and for Arizona and to put at their golf courses. So we're sucking up our water table and we're putting it in palm trees and we're exporting it to places for things that aren't doing anyone a world of good. Palm trees don't even make shade. So 10% of our land in San Diego goes to vegetable production. We've got, and then 15% in fruit and nuts crops. We've got lots of macadamia, lots of oranges, lots of avocados. We do a little bit of timber and some livestock and poultry. But you know, this is the thing that's got to change if we want to have a local food system in San Diego. All right. So let's talk a little bit about equity in what's going on in San Diego. So there's 800,000 people who are food insecure in San Diego County. Okay, that means that they don't know where their next meal is coming from. That's a lot of hungry people. And only 31% of people who are eligible to receive the federal food stamp program are actually receiving the benefits. Does that make sense? So only, was that 1 in 3? Yeah, about 1 in 3. So that 31% enrollment means we're losing $144 million in San Diego County every year, just in food stamps that we could be spending at our grocery stores. And they say that for every $10 that we would spend in food stamps, we could multiply that by $4.20, because if it's staying in the local system, it regenerates itself. Maybe there's some economists in the room that can help explain that. But really, the loss is more like $300 million. And the reason for that is that our food stamp system is incredibly difficult to receive food stamps. Did you know that if you're on financial aid, you guys can get food stamps? If you get financial aid, like you qualify for work study, federal work study, you qualify for food stamps. And you can get an additional about $150 usually per month to buy food, right? And when you go to the grocery store, that means you don't have to eat top ramen, right? You can choose to eat healthy food. You could shop at the farmer's market. You could use that money in different ways, but we don't know it. And the reason we don't know it is because our county doesn't like welfare programs, right? They view this as a welfare program instead of as a nutrition program that could really benefit our neighborhoods and benefit our people. So go find out if you qualify for food stamps. And call me if you want to, and I'll tell you if you actually qualify. Because that could really bring some dollars into our food system, right? So, and you guys are feeling this. I went to the grocery store the other day, and a loaf of bread was $4.50. A loaf of bread, I mean, I can't afford that. And I'm not that hard up for money. So this is what's happening. Eggs are up 60%. Bread is up 28%. Why do you think this is happening? Why is our food cost going up? Because of gas, right? Because we're shipping our food 1,500 miles, right? Doesn't make any sense, right? So people are feeling the squeeze. We're seeing more and more an increased demand for emergency food. We're seeing more people looking to get on food stamps. They're not necessarily getting on because it's very difficult. The process is a big pain. And more kids are signing up for free and reduced lunch. Okay, so enough already, right? We've inundated you with bad news. Let's talk about solutions, right? So, in the 1940s, the U.S. produced approximately 40% of all of its produce in our backyards, right? So if we could do it then, I can't really think of a good reason why we couldn't do it now, right? On a 600 square foot community garden plot, you can produce $500 worth of produce each season, give or take, depending how good of a grower you are. And in San Diego, we have 4 growing seasons. So for a family of 6 on a food stamp budget, that's a 40% increase in their access to food. To me, that's a real solution, right? A quarter-acre farm can generate $10,000 to $20,000 in annual sales. Just a quarter acre of high-intensity bio-intense farming. You can make $10,000 at the farmer's market. That's pretty cool. There's a guy in Boulder, Colorado, who's doing this. He has like 6 different backyards that he's farming, and he takes it to the farmer's market, and he's making good money doing this. It's the article's from the Wall Street Journal. I said before that we have these food deserts in our neighborhoods, right? But we also have incredibly park-deficient neighborhoods. So in City Heights, where I work and live, you guys know where that is? Yeah, I grew up in San Diego, and it's like it's east of the 15. Like people on the coast don't really know anything about it, so it's a little east of the 15. And we are 140 acres park deficient. That means we need 140 acres of big parks just to reach the standard that the city set for itself for parks, right? So there is no green space in our neighborhood. But a community garden is much cheaper to create than a park. It takes about $4 to build a park for every $1 to build a community garden. So we can really partner with the city to create and turn our open vacant lots into green spaces. Pretty cool. And here's, kind of tying it back to the IRC. Refugees and new immigrants are the fastest growing segment of farmers. I mentioned before, average age is 62. Who are we going to get to farm, right? Do you guys know how to farm? I don't very well. So, but refugees and new immigrants, they do. They carry that knowledge with them. And so if we can help figure out how to get them back onto land, then they can really help us solve some of our impending doom when it comes to the food system. They're also incredibly important in food retail business in low-income neighborhoods. So they're the ones that are opening the little corner stores and selling produce. They're the ones solving the food desert problem in our inner cities. So at the IRC, where I work, we've been doing some programming to try to address some of these issues. And Jamie asked me to talk briefly about some of them, so you can just see some real-world examples of how we're trying to deal with this system. So basically, we work with the San Diego Food Bank to give people food. We run an emergency pantry, right? I cannot tell you how important those food drives are that you guys get asked to do all the time. Instead of going and grabbing like that dusty can in the back of the pantry to go to the store and spend 15 or 20 bucks if you can spare it to buy some really quality food will really change people's lives in San Diego because the food bank really lacks healthy options. So that's really, really important. We give about $10,000 a pounds of food each year to our newly arriving refugee families. So those folks I said were just landing in San Diego, we can help fill their cupboards with food. We also offer nutrition education classes because if you walked into a grocery store here, you wouldn't recognize 99% of the food that's available to you. So they need to learn how to cook for themselves. And simple things, like we've had families that unplug their refrigerators because they're loud, right? They're totally loud. Or they cut meat on the floor because that's what they're used to doing. So we have to, different story here in the U.S. Our feet are dirtier, so cutting things on the floor is worse. So we also are starting a project called the New Roots Community Farm, and it's a 2.3 acre vacant parcel in the middle of City Heights, and we're going to turn it into a farm where approximately 80 people can grow their own food. They're going to have 600 square foot plots, kind of going back to that number we talked about before. We're also going to provide on that site 8 larger 1,800 square foot plots as farm incubators, so people who are interested in becoming farmers again can have a little bit more land. They can start to produce some more food and start to sell it at farmers markets, and maybe we can connect them and get them back into a rural environment. Also, with all the ethnic minorities that live in San Diego and in our country, there's specialty food crops, right? And those, when we're growing like only one kind of corn and only one kind of rice, those things get lost and they get expensive. So there's a niche there. There's a micro-enterprise opportunity for people who look at growing specialty crops and then selling it to the populations, the rival populations in San Diego. Does that make sense? Okay. How y'all doing? Am I talking way too much? Okay, so here's the vacant lot we're going to turn into a farm. Our groundbreaking is on October 21st. You all are invited if you want to come out from 5 to 6:30. So it's really exciting. The permitting process for the city of San Diego took us 2 years in order to get this site. And the reason it took so long is because there was absolutely no process for siting a community farm and garden in San Diego. Philadelphia, they have 1,000 community gardens. San Diego, 6, right? And most of them, the city didn't even know they existed, right? So we have had to kind of blaze new ground when it comes to this, and we're going to go to City Council in November and suggest a new policy to them. The price tag for our process for getting the permits was $44,000 for just the permits. Like, we haven't even started building yet. That's insane to me. We want to get it to be like $250 so that anyone can start a community garden. It just makes sense, right? It goes back to that 1-to-4 ratio of dollars. If private folks are interested in building parks in San Diego, why the hell wouldn't we let them? Why would we make it really hard for them, right? And I keep joking, when I speak in front of City Council, I'm going to calculate how much our first batch of tomatoes is going to cost us to grow, figuring all the permit costs in. It's going to be like a $600 tomato, something like that. So maybe I'll give Donna Fry a $600 tomato. We also started the City Heights Farmers Market. Has anyone heard about that market yet? Yeah? Okay, cool. So it is the first food stamp accessible farmers market in San Diego, and it's the only one situated within a low-income community. So at first we went to the other farmers markets and we said, you should take food stamps. It's great because there's $16 million that you could get just in food stamps. And straight up people told us, we don't want those people at our market, right? Because the idea that food stamps is for people that are poor. It's not for people like you and me in this room right now, right? It's this welfare program. So we're changing that at the City Heights Farmers Market. So we just decided to start our own. We also really are trying to be an open place for the senior and WIC. You guys know what WIC is? Women, Infants, and Children. It's a program to help moms get better nutrition while they're pregnant, and for their new arrived babies to have better nutrition. And we have brought in about $20,000 into the farmers market in these coupons this year that weren't getting spent in San Diego because there was no farmers market in a low-income community where people had these coupons, right? Does that make sense? Okay, So here's some pictures of the farmers market. This was opening day. It was great. We had like 1,500 people there. And these are the Vietnamese ladies. Our market opens at 9. They show up at 7:30, and they're bartering as like the farmers are taking the stuff off the trucks. And it's been an interesting educational process for the farmers because they're not used to the personalities of the Vietnamese ladies. They are rough when it comes to bartering. So we also we know that the food system, our current broken food system, subsidizes corn and sugar, right? It subsidizes these crops. And so in order to make a movement back towards a system that subsidizes fruits and vegetables, we're going to have to foot the bill. We're going to have to come up with creative solutions to start changing the system. So one of the things that we did, we have a program called the Fresh Fund, all right? And when people come to the farmer's market and they have food stamps, they use WIC, or they're on SSI, which is disability, we give them $5 free to spend at the market, right? So we're topping up their purchases at the market. And it has been wildly successful. Like people line up at like 7:30 in the morning, and the market opens at 9 in order to start the program. So a couple other things that we've worked on is farm to institution. Have you guys heard of farm to school before? It's this idea of connecting schools directly to local farmers so that you guys can get better food in your cafeterias, right? But unfortunately, most cafeterias they want it easy, right? They want this pre-sliced carrots. They don't want to have to wash the carrots, and they don't want to have to choose between two different stuff. They want all their oranges to be the same because the federal government tells them that every kid has to have the same size orange. Right? Well, that doesn't work with local farmers. So we've got all these laws and barriers and things that get in our way. But we really could tap into, this school could tap into creating a relationship with local farmers, and you guys could have a beautiful salad bar. You probably already do have a beautiful salad bar, but it could be filled with locally grown foods. No? How's your salad bar? It's okay? All right. Well, there you go. There's a task for your sustainability. They are doing a pilot program with Sierra Miguel Farm and the Escondido School District to get this going on an institutional level. So if Point Loma is interested, you should get on the bandwagon fast because every university in the next, I'd say 2 years, is going to want to do it. And there's not enough food to go around, so I should get on it. The other project is Healthy Corner Stores. So kind of in the vein of the things I was talking about with the Tesco Fresh and Easies. We are trying to do work with the corner stores to get them coolers for their fruits and vegetables so they last longer, to get them to stop stocking Oreos and thinking about healthier options. So that's, I think, a really important step, because if we leave it to the Tesco's of the world to create equal access for all people, it's just not going to happen. So where do we go from here? I'm almost done. So every year San Diego spends approximately $14 billion on food, all right? And 45% of that, $7.1 billion, we spend eating out. That is a lot of money, right? And given that overwhelming figure, it seems to me that we should be able to convince the farmers that are growing palm trees that there is more lucrative business opportunity in growing fruits and vegetables. So, but we have to make the switch, right? We have to, they call it vote with your dollars, right? So what would happen if we spent this money at farmers markets? What if we demanded local produce at our grocery stores? You guys have a Henry's nearby? Yeah, they say they have local food, but ask them. They don't. You demand local food. What if you eat at locally owned restaurants that are trying really hard to get local food into their menus? And what if we, support fair trade and even going beyond fair trade to locally grown fair trade? Right? So here's a few things that Jamie thought it would be a good idea to share. Some little things that you guys can do, right? So look for classroom education opportunities and internships that support food system change. We need your guys' help. You're smarter than us because we're old, right? You can check out San Diego Roots and San Diego Food Not Lawns. Both of those have excellent websites, lots of resources, and then local classes that you can take if you're interested in learning how to grow food. It also, the San Diego Roots website has a listing of all the grocery stores that have local food, all the farmers markets, all the community gardens. You can shop at the OB Farmers Market. Have all of you been to the OB Farmers Market? Yes, okay, good. Keep shopping there because the bigger the better. You can shop at People's Co-op, right? You can join a CSA. You guys know what community supported agriculture is? 4 or 5 people get together, they buy a box from a farm, and every week you get a delivery of a box of fresh local produce. It'll teach you how to eat seasonally, right? You get very creative about how to use kale in about February because it's been in your box for the last like 3 months, and you're kind of tired of kale, right? But that's what it's going to take if we're going to make, it's a commitment, right, to a better, more environmentally savvy way of eating. And then finally, you can explore the potential for farm to cafeteria at Point Loma. I think you guys are probably set up more than any other school to make that happen. So these are some of our students in our school garden. And the other day I brought mango juice to class because I was running late. I brought mango juice, and they lectured me for bringing them food that had corn syrup in it. So these kids, they can do it, all of us can. All right, I know I went on and on and on, but hopefully it was interesting. Any comments, questions, ideas, things that come up for you? What do you think? Yeah.
Where do you get your statistics?
I can, if you want me to, if you want to leave me your email, I can forward you all the studies. There's a lot of universities that are doing studies, so yeah, they're kind of all over the place. The numbers all come from like consumer reports and census, but all the stuff like Rutgers University does a lot of work around food systems, Portland State, so those kind of numbers come from there. So if you're interested in them, I can get up to you. Yeah.
Just if anyone's interested, Levi's Ranch is a CSA, and it's pretty cheap. Like if you have an apartment that's split it, you get a box of $25 every other week, and you get a lot of stuff. So, Levi's Ranch.
Yeah, and I kind of give it a bad rap when I said there's always kale, but because if you deal with the kale for a little while, you're going to one time, a couple times you're going to get a box that's like filled with strawberries and oranges and avocados, and it's like worth so much more money than you invest in it. So it's really fun. It's
They
like
have a
Christmas.
Point Loma drop off now, like right off Rosebands.
Oh, cool. Like Christmas for your health. Yes.
I have a question about the local farms or local stores and stuff.
Mhm.
But my parents, when I was my parents have been kind of cynical people, can fill them with this propaganda that you don't buy things from places like that. Like, because I live in LA, and there's a lot of, especially in the downtown area of my city, there's a lot of local Mexican-owned like farmers market stores.
Mhm.
But they said that the food there isn't safe, or you run risk of getting mercury poisoning or something.
Right.
Like
So we'll throw that back. So the E. coli scare, right? Where did that come from? Did it come from a farmer's market? It came from a factory farm, right? We're so conditioned. I mean, your parents, they're just, listening to what's around them, and we're put so much money into telling us why the corporate food system is safe and why we should trust it, right? But when you really look at it, that's what's getting us sick. Foot and mouth disease, all this stuff that's happening is because of the corporate food system. No one gets sick. I've never ever heard a story of someone getting sick at a farmer's market. Now, if you go into the store and you notice that the people's hands are dirty, or like, check it out, talk to them, ask them where they get their food. That's the beauty of a small system, is that they know where they got it from, right? And if they don't tell you, then take your business elsewhere, Because they are under a certain set of guidelines that they have to follow as well.
If so much money is spent packaging and shipping food from elsewhere, miles away, how come local farmers can charge just as much for hair as it would be sold for in commercials?
Right. So that's a really good question. So let's take the example of a mango, because that's going to come from South America, right? Where they paid pennies for the farm work and they're paying pennies for the product. So all of the monies go into shipping, right? And then our local farmer that's trying to grow mango, they have to pay for land that's way more expensive. They have to pay for labor that's way more expensive. They have to pay for workers' compensation and social security and all this stuff, right? So they can't compete. And if the reason is that we removed all those tariffs on that mango moving into the United States, we used to tax it, so it made it more equal to what our farmer was having to deal with. Well, now we've removed that barrier. So it's a race to the bottom, right? Because that person making pennies on that food, in South America, they could sell that food locally, and make much more money off of it. But it just, the way that this kind of octopus has grown, it makes it, cheaper to move food farther. Now, we're starting to see a change in that as the gas prices go up. There's more companies, big food companies like Dole are now starting to look back at, okay, well, we're going to grow our greens, our lettuces on the East Coast because basically they're growing, in Mexico and then they're shipping air all the way across the country because lettuce is mostly air. They can't afford to do that. So they're actually having to look at relocalizing as well. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay. There's a really awesome website. It's called the International Forum on Globalization that really explains kind of the perils of free trade in some pretty cool ways. So check that out.
What kinds of things do you think need to happen to get rid of the corn subsidies that is constantly happening?
Yeah, really good question. So the 2008 Farm Bill, it was the first time that people really paid attention to the Farm Bill, which is this huge piece of legislation that pays for the entire food stamp program and all kinds of money that goes into these corporate subsidies. Now the funny thing is that a lot of people were pushing to get new, better stuff in the Farm Bill, and it's still a fledgling movement. So it was heard, but there was little tremors, right? Then George Bush goes and refuses to sign the bill because it had too many subsidies for millionaire farmers, right? But they needed the Farm Bill, so it went back to Congress and then came back to Bush and he signed it. But that to me is a little warning sign or not warning sign, but an opportunity that with the 2012 Farm Bill, if there was some more action taken on it, we could really shift that. Now that said, it's also tied into things like the World Trade Organization, the Free Trade Area of the Americas, all these big, huge systems that are affecting our lives every day. And it's hard. We don't have time to deal with the World Trade Organization, right? It's hard. So I think that if we do push on the Farm Bill, it might put in a domino effect that would roll out and really benefit countries around the world. So it sounds kind of weird, but get involved with the Farm Bill if you have an opportunity in 2012. Yeah.
I imagine that a major barrier for middle-class families in going into local farming stuff, buying produce from local markets, as well as growing their own food, is the preparation time and the farming time, the cost of that. Do you have statistics that show?
You mean like how much
Right.
time you have to put into your garden?
If I buy a pre-made salad from Mexico, that takes me 0 time to prepare, opposed to growing my own lettuce, etc.
Right. We're not going to get everyone to grow food. There's a reason why we shifted away from that, right? Because some people don't like it. It's hard work, and that's fine. But for a lot of people, it's great fun. It's recreation for their kids. It's a healthy way to exercise. It has so many benefits. So it's like, my whole thing is that don't knock until you try it, right? If we could get more people to try it, then we'd have more people growing food.
I was just wondering if you had numbers for that.
I
to
don't.
show-
I mean, I can
so
think,
people get
how much
away.
time do I spend in my garden? I don't know, depending on the week, between 2 and 4 hours. It's like once you get it to a level, you don't have to spend that much time on it. It's pretty fun. I don't know. Good question. I'll look it up.
Can you tell them a little bit about what Food Not Lawns is doing about local households?
Sure. Yeah, I work with this organization called San Diego Food Not Lawns, and it's like the name says, why are we putting all these resources into producing green lawns when we could be growing food, especially in a desert, water-starved area. So there's a conference that we're going to have the first week in March. It's called Cultivating Food Justice. And we are going to work with Jamie to get you guys involved in the Cultivating Food Justice conference. And Food Not Lawns, there's always a events and different stuff posted on our website, so you can check it out. It's pretty cool, pretty active, and you're always welcome to join Food Not Lines. It's a really fun, and we have great pop-ups. Yes. Local mead, home brews, it's like amazing. The kind of like homemade ginger brew, stuff that people come up with is really crazy. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Do you notice like any problems with transportation, like getting people or actual food to farmers markets and back?
Yeah, exactly. So farmers, I mean, if the answer was just, okay, like grow food and bring it to the farmer's market, then we would have more thriving farms in San Diego. It's still really, really hard. We haven't hit, it's kind of like we have to hit that threshold where there's so many people demanding food that they're not having any losses at the farm, and we're not there yet, which is why I'm telling you to go to the farmer's market. So yeah, farmers are hurting still. At the City Heights Farmers Market, our biggest kind of farmers, they make about between $800 and $1,000 on every market. And their overhead is low. They pay 8% to us to operate the market, but still, that's a lot of work. Picking, washing, driving, selling, taking it all back.
How far do they come from? On average?
Right. We, Valley Center and that area. We also, we have someone. Farmers markets are weird because we do have a farmer who is from Riverside, and he kind of like delivers and then has staff people that sell at all the markets. So it's not necessarily like the quaint idea of like every farmer comes to the market. There is some larger scale operation there. But the rules of the farmers market say that it has to be producer sold, so you can't buy it from another farm and then resell it at the farmers market. Anything else? What do you guys think about this idea of having farm to cafeteria at White? Is that something that sounds like even feasible here? You guys seem like you're doing some cool stuff.
I think it would take a lot of work, but I think that it would be great.
Have you worked with larger corporations and institutions that will kind of vendor policies? Like we have Sodexo, for example.
Right.
At Point Wellington, which is a tough company to work with on
Yeah.
social responsibility, right?
Right. That's been the main issue with the city of San Diego School District is that they want to run through their normal suppliers, and we've had some success. I personally don't have the stomach for working with large corporations, so I leave that up to other people to do, and I work on the grassroots level. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's all about if their demand is there, the harder people push. If it's economically more viable, then they'll do it. And we have to find those solutions. If it's more expensive, then no one's going to do it.
And the university renews contracts every so many years. And if there's enough pressure from the student body and enough pressure from the faculty and staff for a different kind of contract, it'll change its contract.
Yeah. I think the best example of that right now is that in Children's Hospital, there's a McDonald's in Children's Hospital. And when they built it, obviously that was acceptable, but in the last 10 years, it's become totally unacceptable that there is a McDonald's in Children's Hospital, and they can't wait to get McDonald's out of there, and they're not renewing their contract. So, I mean, the sea change happens slowly, but we can give it a push also.
I was just going to mention what Dr. Gates was talking about. It would really take a lot of people putting the pressure on the people who are in charge of renewing the contracts with Sodexo and all that kind of stuff to make those changes, because if there's nobody pushing them to make any changes that they want.
So it was a couple of years ago that students like you put pressure on the cafeteria to get fair trade coffee, and they switched to Pura Vida coffee. And now that's what they do every year. They just built it into their buying pattern. So that was a Sodexo move that went outside of Sodexo's normal buying contracts to bring a better product.
Yeah. And I mean, it's our health, right? I mean, not only of our planet, but cancer, we don't know where that's all coming from. I mean, it's got to be from our food. The obesity rates, and all you guys look great, but I'll tell you what, when your metabolism starts to shut down, that kind of food is going to become, what you ate now is really going to matter, 5, 10, 15 years from now. So.
I would think the idea is fantastic. I think the thing I feel though is that until you read like the Omnivore Dilemma or whatever, I don't think you understand how grotesque the food industry is until you know. And so if you don't know, like, who's gonna, that's I think the hardest thing.
Right. Education is everything, right? They've
Yeah,
done a
so-
really good job of making it all seem very clean and safe.
Yeah.
And so she said Omnivore's Dilemma, fantastic book, easy read. Michael Pollan goes through 4 meals, a McDonald's like burger, organic food store like a TV dinner, a meal that you bought at the farmer's market, and a meal that he hunted himself in the hills of like Berkeley, California. So he hunts a wild boar. It's quite entertaining. So and gathers all this other stuff. So it's a great book.
Eric Schlosser's Fast Food Nation.
Fast Food Nation. You can watch the movie Fast Food Nation if you're feeling lazy. That even that is possible. Have you guys seen Fast Food Nation? It's good. It's a pretty good book. There's so much now coming out about the food system. I mean, this is really like a wave that's gonna blow.
What are some of the new documentaries you could tell us about? You know, like King Corn. You mentioned
King
King
Corn,
Corn.
The Future of Food is really good. I knew someone was gonna ask that because right off the top of my head, I don't have that many. But if you just
So like Black
Google and
Gold.
search a little bit, you'll find some.
Black Gold is about the coffee industry. Maybe some of the rest of you in the room know some of these documentaries. You want to call some out? There's Black Gold. Life and Debt is one I use in anthropology class a lot, which is about the food system and globalization, how it impacts a small country like Jamaica. Really profound. Looked at like the banana industry, the milk industry, the dairy, the poultry industry. It looked at how they go global and collapses local industries in Jamaica. Life and Debt, Stephanie Black's documentary. Any others you can think of? There's a couple of really interesting ones. There's a new one on water.
Yeah, it was at the
At the
end.
Ken, right? Remember what that's called? Flow. Flow. It's also a really interesting thing.
And that's getting warm in here, huh? Okay.
All right, any other last couple of questions? We don't want to keep you all night if you don't have questions. There are a lot of really exciting local things being done. And so we really have no excuse. He was awesome.
That is. Aww.
So can we thank Ellie tonight for... There are flyers right at the back for the IRC. Ellie's email is on there. If you'd like to get on an email list that sends you updates about these kinds of things, about the, or if you'd like to just know more, if you'd like to email Ellie. She's really busy, but we'll make sure.
And if you can, I know it's kind of a trek, but come out to the City Heights Farmers Market because it's different and it's small now, but it'll grow with support, and it's really a different and fun place to be on Saturday.
Enough of you let me know that you want to go out to the groundbreaking ceremony on the 21st, Tuesday evening, this 21st. You let me know, and I'll organize transportation through the university. All right, but I need you all to take some initiative, and if we can fill up a van or a bus, you let me know. We'll take it out there. Okay.